What is going on, everybody? And this will be my review for Battlefield Hardline on the PlayStation 4. Now, myself and a lot of other people were really apprehensive about this newest entry into the Battlefield series, mostly because of what happened with Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4's launch will go down as one of the biggest debacles in the entire history of video game launches, in my opinion. There were so many server issues. You were getting kicked out of games constantly. The few times you got to actually play a game, most of the time you couldn't even play a game. You'd just be sitting there trying to do quick match and just pick different servers, and most of the time you couldn't even play a game. It was very, very frustrating, and it took them at least 6 months for them to get all that stuff ironed out. But that game left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So people were worried about Battlefield Hardline. Was the same thing going to happen? Some people have just decided to skip the game entirely in fear of this stuff might actually happen again. But did we get a repeat of Battlefield 4 with this game? Well, let's find out, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now let's talk about the single player for Battlefield Hardline. Now, the Battlefield series has been known as a military first-person shooter, so the single player of those games has always revolved around a war or some type of conflict, and you're a soldier in the military. And either you are in another country, and just war is raging on, and all that same old stuff. Battlefield Hardline has decided to take a different route. They've decided to take a more local route, shall we say. Instead of soldiers and militaries fighting against each other in a war setting, it's now cops versus robbers. And I have to say, I really am enjoying the single player portion of Battlefield Hardline, which is actually very surprising to me because usually the single player for not just Battlefield, but Call of Duty and other similar style first-person shooters, the campaigns have been throwaway campaigns because most people buy these games for the multiplayer, so these developers really don't see the need to put a lot of time and effort into the single player. But Battlefield Hardline's campaign felt really fresh and different compared to the normal single players. I mean, does it play any differently than those other first-person shooters? No, it still plays the same. You're still set on a linear path. You still have your objectives. Excuse me. But it just feels fresh because the setting is different. No longer are you in war-torn environments. You're in Florida. A lot of times you're in Miami, Florida. You're in the Everglades. You're in these very different settings. And that's what made it feel fresh. And not only that, most of the gameplay in the single player revolves around being stealthy. Because usually when you see a cop is supposed to uphold the law. And by doing that means they're not supposed to abuse the law. Now, I understand that some do, but that's another story. So, in this game, you're not really going in guns blazing all the time. And the game actually rewards you for doing stealth kills. And the game even rewards you even more for doing arrests. So instead of going into a room and just shooting up the place like you would normally do in a first-person shooter, you can sneak around, flash your badge, and then arrest someone for extra bonus points. And those points lead to your cop level, which allows you to unlock different guns to use in the campaign. So if you want to replay a level, maybe you missed a collectible, or maybe you just want to replay it, you can now choose your loadout. But in order to get that, you have to get cop points, which means you have to be a good cop, so to speak. That was really refreshing to me. It was nice to play a first-person shooter that didn't have the same vibe to it. And not only that, this also kind of played out like a movie. Because in the beginning of the game, you're given the rundown of all the characters like the starting credits. I thought that was pretty interesting. And not only that, a lot of the characters have a backstory that is fully elaborated on in the game. And the thing is, there's an actual story there. It's not like the previous Battlefield entries where you're in this war-torn environment. It's a military setting. Just go kill the other guys. We have to stop this nuke, etc., etc. The same old stuff, time after time. This actually was different, and I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed that. Now, how long is the game? It really isn't terribly long. It's not any longer than it has to be, because at the end of the day, when you play a first-person shooter, stuff tends to get old after a while, because you'll be doing the same things. You'll be killing the same people. You'll be doing the same actions. It eventually gets old after a while. That's why these campaigns really shouldn't be any longer than they actually are. But Battlefield Hardline's got a decent campaign length, and it's very different from normally what you're used to in Battlefield single player. So if you're actually interested in playing single player games for first person shooters, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with this. I think you will. Now let's talk about the multiplayer for Battlefield Hardline, because that is probably what 99.9% of you are here for. You want to know how the multiplayer is. You would like to know if the same issues that happened on Battlefield 4's launch happened with this game. Are there any other persistent issues that may be in this game? Well, guess what, people? I am happy, so freaking happy to report that none of the launch issues that were in Battlefield 4 are in Battlefield Hardline. When I booted the game up, I could actually join servers, I could do quick match of any game mode, and it felt really good that I could actually play the goddamn game, because you couldn't do it with Battlefield 4. It was so great. Now, as for the actual multiplayer itself, I think it's pretty damn good. Now, it's not really it's not that much different from your normal Battlefield multiplayer. It still plays like a Battlefield game, but there are some minor differences, like the vehicle selection. Since the previous Battlefield games were military first-person shooters, you had military vehicles, and you had giant vehicles like tanks, and you had your attack helicopters, and just stuff like that. That stuff is not in this game, because this game is cops versus robbers. You have more normal local style vehicles. So no giant tanks, no giant attack helicopters. You do have your SUVs, you do have your Hummers with turrets, you do have your regular police choppers, but none of the big stuff. None of the good stuff. But what I really liked, or what I am liking about Battlefield Hardline's multiplayer, is that the map selection. All the maps feel different. Like, as you could probably see in this video, I'm playing on Everglades, which is basically like the Florida Everglades. When did you ever think you were going to be playing a Battlefield game in the swamp? It's very different. I never thought I'd see that, and it's really cool how you could see little things like the birds flying, you see an alligator come up every now and then. It doesn't do anything to you, but it's just really cool to see. And then there's stuff like, there's Hollywood apartments, there's your regular suburbs. It's just the map selection has a good variety. And I really enjoyed that. It wasn't like, and honestly, even though I have enjoyed previous Battlefield games, a lot of the maps really felt similar, in my opinion. It doesn't feel like that in this one. Now let's talk about the game mode selection that you will have with this game. And I think the game mode selection with this game has a really good variety. I mean, you have your normal Battlefield modes. You got your large conquests with the 60+ players. You have small conquests with fewer number of players, and this map gets shrunk down a bit. You also have Team Deathmatch, your normal Team Deathmatch, because contrary to what some people may believe, there are people that play Team Deathmatch in Battlefield, because most people associate Battlefield with the vehicles, the big maps, and that's fine. That's what makes Battlefield stand out from the other games, but there are some people that still like to play just normal Team Deathmatch, and that's the great thing about Battlefield, is that it supplies that. It gives you the big modes with the big maps and all the tons of vehicles, but it also gives you small modes like Domination and Team Deathmatch, which I think is great, because people like to play different game modes. Now, what are the new game modes for this? You have Heist. Heist is basically, in my opinion, the defining game mode for Battlefield Hardline. It's cops versus robbers, but depending on what side you're on, you have a different objective. If you're on the cop side, you have to defend this vault that the robbers are trying to break into. If you're on the robber side, you have to break into the vault, steal the money bags, and then get it to this drop point where then you can escape. So basically, the game feels different depending on what side you're on because of those objectives. And what I've noticed is some maps kind of benefit one side over the other. At least in my opinion. Like there's this derail map, I think it was called. It's the train map. And I noticed it was actually pretty difficult for robbers because a lot of the drop points are in open area. So it's easy to pick off all the robbers in these open areas with sniper rifles and stuff like that. But Heist is definitely a fun game mode. Another fun game mode is a Blood Money, where there's one pile of money and both sides have to collect piles of money and take it back to their respective vaults. But what you can also do is actually go to the other player's vault and take money out of that vault and then go back to your vault and put it in yours. Now, that's quite difficult because you going to their vault and then taking money and then going over to their vault, that there's a very good chance you might die, but it offers a lot of variety, and none of the games feel different every time you play it. At least with me it did. Whenever I played the game, I never felt like I was doing the same actions. I was basically it never felt the same to me. Now, some people might feel differently, but to me it never felt the same. It really didn't. And the game modes, I think there's a lot of variety here, and it kind of pleases all audiences, which I like. Now, what's also different about Battlefield Hardline is that you get money. Now, you still have your normal experience points and your normal rankings and stuff like that, but you also get money. And money is basically your experience points that you accrue over time. But you can actually spend it, and you can spend the money to unlock skins, you can buy new guns, and there's also guns that are only for cops and robbers. There's only guns for the cops and only guns for the robbers. Now, if you get enough kills with that weapon, which are a lot of kills, by the way, you can use that gun for both sides. I actually like that feature because I've always never liked in previous first-person shooters where, oh, I have to be this level to get my favorite gun. Like when you prestige in Call of Duty, you lose all your guns, and it's like, oh man, now I got to go back to the highest level to get one of my favorite guns. Whereas in Battlefield, you can just save up, or Battlefield Hardline, excuse me, you could save up all your money and just wait till you get that gun, because most of the guns in the game, notice I'm saying most guns, are unlocked from the start, and you can just spend that money once you have enough. And not only that, you could spend the money on accessories, the sights, the underbarrels, and it reminds me a lot of Black Ops 1, where you got Call of Duty money and then you could spend it on attachments and stuff. I actually like that. I really do. And to me, it was kind of addicting in a way to just get money. I know that sounds pretty crazy, but it was kind of addicting to just accrue a ton of money and then just spend it on something big. So I really like that aspect of the game. Now for my final thoughts on Battlefield Hardline. If you're a huge Battlefield fan and you were pretty apprehensive at going into this game because of what happened with Battlefield 4, I really don't think you have anything to worry about, because none of the major issues that were a part of Battlefield 4's launch are present in this game. Now, is this also the next revolutionary Battlefield, so to speak? No, not really. Some people call this game a DLC for Battlefield 4. I really can't agree with that, because it's got a really decent single player, and the multiplayer has a ton of content. In my opinion, it looks like it has more content actually than Battlefield 4 did, because of the money aspect and the fact that there's so much stuff you can unlock. So I definitely can't agree that this is a DLC to Battlefield 4. This is definitely a full-fledged Battlefield game. Now, if you don't have the money to get this right away, then it's not something you should get immediately. But if you happen to see this game on sale, maybe, or if you do happen to get the money, then I definitely recommend this game if you are a huge Battlefield fan. If you are not a huge Battlefield fan, if you've never really liked the series and you're waiting for that one game that will get you hooked to the series, you might as well keep on moving because this is not the game that will do that. So, alright, that's about it. I really hope you enjoyed my review. Let me know what your thoughts on the game are, and let me know what you thought about this review down below, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.
Hostile suspect down!